Bullying can make a male child or a female child feel nobody wants me. I'm not good enough. I'm not bright. I'm not intelligent. If I don't even show up, nobody will notice.
Oh my word.
If I go away, nobody will. My parents don't even notice my feelings. They don't know I'm around. They don't know I'm a being. Suicide happens, and because they are aware that this is the way some people dealt with it, coping mechanism, ungodly coping mechanism.
Yes.
So they resort to that.
What's the psychological effect on a child that is bullied?
The impact, it has on every child. You're talking about, repression of, personality. They might, form a coping mechanism which is not that original wiring. They tend to act tougher. Some of them seek, help in the wrong arms. They find themselves joining a clique. Most females, they deal with depression. Low self-esteem is one of the biggest challenges with females. They start seeing themselves as not good enough, not beautiful enough, especially when there's name calling involved. So for a male child, it comes in a very subtle way. They might not show it, they might not cry, they might act tough and all that, but, they overly they do extra that they don't need to.
That they don't need to,
yes, just to prove a point. Yes. So in every child is, a tendency and a potential to become a beast. It can move from being a human being to a beast. If you leave it unchecked, we must be intentional.
Hello, lovely people, and welcome to another exciting episode of the show. I am your host, Pastor FUNKE Kasali. You are welcome, and welcome to my wonderful audience. Welcome, FUNKE. Thank you for being on today's show. All right. Now, today's topic is very, very dear to my heart. Putting others down won't make you go up. It never does. Social media was abuzz with talk about a viral video, a video that basically went viral, showing two girls that were fighting in Guyana. I'm sure you saw that video. My heart stopped. In fact, I did not watch it to the end, just from looking at the way the girl was, the condition. Now, during the fight, one of the girls tumbled between two chairs and ended up breaking her neck. People breaking her neck. The fight came to a halt, and someone called for help. She was quickly taken to the hospital where she received treatment. Many people, including me, believe that it was a sheer miracle that she survived. Here in Nigeria also, we recently heard about another case of bullying. There was a video circulating on social media about some girls a student here in Abuja ganging up on another girl at one of the secondary schools. Now, one girl was even seen slapping the victim. For many people, it's hard to believe that parents still don't think their children could be involved in bullying your dear child. Yes. It's so unfortunate some kids are taught to always retaliate without considering the consequences. They say something like, if you get slapped, well, what do you have your hand for? Slap them back. But your slap may be a fatal one. We must also recognize that apart from the physical effects of bullying, the most critical ones are the psychological effects that bullying has on our kids. My guest on the show is a performance enhancement coach who has worked with over 1,000 preteens and teenagers for over a period of 10 years. He runs performance enhancement coaching modules with notable private schools in Abuja, and he also holds private one-on-one sessions. He is the pastor of the Junior Church of the Transforming Church International. He breathes, speaks, and lives for anything that affects the well-being of children, teenagers, and young adults. He believes that the future we desire can be created by instilling the right virtues, values, and principles in the minds of the young ones who would become leaders in the nearest future. Studio audience, please help me make welcome my guest on the show today, Mr. Timi Olatunji.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Such a great pleasure being here. Thank you very much, Mom.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for
Mr.
that
Olatunji
introduction.
Really, you do a lot.
Thank you
yes,
so much.
and we had to introduce you appropriately. So the first thing that I want to ask you is, how did you get into the business of coaching young people? Because you hear a lot about life coaches for adults.
Yeah.
But young people, how did you get into that side?
Okay. First and first, thanks be to God. I discovered, I had, passion, intense passion for the young ones, and it was because of a challenge that I had faced myself. When it comes to finding my path in life, knowing what exactly I was supposed to do, what my purpose was. So in the quest of that, in solving that challenge personally, I realized that many people from where I came from, most especially in Africa, Nigeria, also have same challenges, in terms of going to the wrong path of career based on external influences, parents' influences, and all that.
Right.
So,
were you bullied or were you a bully? Were you either one of them?
Nah, I wouldn't say I was bullied or being a bully. I think, I was a kid that would stand up for myself. I've gotten into maybe a few fights as a student in secondary school.
So there was attempt to bully you along the way, but you were able to stop it.
Something like that, yes, ma'am. Yes.
Now, what's the psychological effect on a child that is bullied, especially when it goes for a long time?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. The impact it has on every child. It is different slightly for the female gender compared to the male gender, but you're talking about repression of personality. So the original personality might be repressed, or they might form a coping mechanism which is not that original wiring. They tend to act tougher. All right, become tougher in terms of the way they interact with their peers, and slightly tilt towards becoming a bully themselves. Emotionally, mental health. Some of them, go into depression. Some of them, seek, help in the wrong arms. They find themselves joining a clique. And that's what births, even cultism.
I was just going to say, but I want to go back quickly to, that point that you made. How does bullying differ amongst girls and boys?
Okay.
You alluded to, that. How does that happen?
All right. So, for the female child, for example, interestingly, I took a brief survey yesterday asking about 44 teenagers, different teenagers, both male and female gender. Most females, they deal with depression, Low self-esteem is one of the biggest challenges with females. They start seeing themselves as not good enough, not beautiful enough, especially when there's name calling involved. You are too fat, you are too dark skinned, you are not pretty, no boy wants to talk to you. So for the female child, it's almost, low self-esteem. Inferiority complex.
It's harder on girls.
Yes, exactly.
Than it is on
a
boys.
guy can toughen up, and sometimes tend to become a bully himself. If he doesn't become a bully himself, it suppresses his emotion and act like it's fine. But internally, it starts dealing with a lot of, identity issue and crisis. And for some reason, sometimes, it has a, positive effect, but almost with the wrong motive. It wants to become, successful by all means, just to prove a point, and then use that as a way to, form his identity. But, so for a male child, it comes in a very subtle way. They might not show it, they might not cry, they might not, and wear it, they might act tough and all that, but, they overly become, they do extra that they don't need to.
That they don't need to, just to fit
just to prove a point, to be part of the clique or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to ask this question. Kids who are are bullies.
Yes.
Right? Who are bullies now, does that come from being beaten up by maybe their parents? What's the link between a bully and how they were raised up? All right.
This is a very interesting. I love this question so much. If I would go slightly into biblical, stories and all that, especially the book of Kings and Chronicles, if you study it in a different eyes, like through the eyes of a parent, You will find godly parents and godly children. You will find godly parents and ungodly children. You will find ungodly parents and godly children, and ungodly parents and ungodly children. So it starts with the family. There's a big role the family plays in the well-being of a child. There are lots of things, parents can correct early. I have a son and I have a daughter. And I told my wife I don't want any other child because I begin to see how difficult to be an intentional parent, watching every behavior, attitude of your son and your daughter and seeing the differences. He wants to play, but he doesn't know how to play yet. So he's pushing his sister. So I have to be there to tell him, Grandjo, you can't play with Moriola like that. She's a baby. You can't push her. But, he's processing it as I'm talking to him. But if I'm not there or present, he would just, be left to do what he thinks, is right, in his own definition. Yeah. So parents play a very big role in the well-being of a child. They need to be present and intentional.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So I'm glad you mentioned that you're a parent.
Yeah.
And because as you were speaking, one thing that was coming to my mind was, what's the balance? The Bible says, spare the rod, you spoil the child. And, I must say that my kids, of course, are, grown, they're adults, right? But, in my house, we did use the rod, but there was a particular instance, and I told my kids very early, the time you will get the rod is if I catch you lying. You will not get the rod for anything else.
To come out true.
If you just come and say,
yes, I did it, I own up to it.
I'm okay with that. I'll sit down and we'll have a conversation about why you did what, and I'll correct you in a soft voice. But you lie to me, you get the rod. How have you seen that, and what can you tell our parents that are here, young parents coming up, on the fine line between when you are really damaging them and turning them into bullies, but you're correcting them?
Discipline is key when it comes to parenting, and that is one thing parents are beginning to shy away from, and it's affecting them. Even school teachers can't discipline students anymore because parents won't allow it. But I used to brag and say I would never, spank my son or daughter. But I can tell you I've spanked my son. Because again, like I said, intentional parenting requires that you know the kind of child that you have and the kind of way, the kind of corrective measure that child will receive. Every child is different. Some children, you might have to talk to them and they would, make adjustments. Some, you have to go beyond talking. Otherwise, in every child is, a tendency and a potential to become a beast. It can move from being a human being to a beast if you leave it unchecked. So you have to be very, very observant and to begin to tell yourself, what sort of corrective measure would my son or daughter respond to?
Know your child.
Yes, you must know your child. It's very important. We cannot just, it's not a, plug-in, templates, that you read online. Yes, no, it's not.
One size
you must know your child. Yes.
Okay.
So I know my child, I know my son. Thank you very much.
Awesome. All right, we're going to take a break. Time goes by fast. Isn't it? We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Mr. Timmy Olatunji.
Thank you
back
very
in
much.
a moment.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Welcome back to the Moment Show with Pastor FUNKE, and I'm still talking to my friend and my guest here, Mr. Timmy Olatunji, who's working with teens and preteens on the on just growing up right. So, Mr. Olatunji, I wanted to bring up this issue. What are the signs, if there are any, that a parent can quickly notice when kids are young that this child maybe have some kind of predisposition to being a bully? All right. Let me add to that.
Okay.
Is bullying learned, or is that something innate in people that just makes them too aggressive?
Okay. All right. So, first question: some of the signs because bullying is in 3 different dimensions. You have the witness, people just watching and contributing. Somebody calls someone as a name, the other kids are laughing. So they're also, an indirect bully, as a party to that. Whether especially when you don't stand up and correct it. All right. So there's the witness, there's the victim, and there's a perpetrator, the one who's carrying out the bullying. So some of the signs for the one who is the bully, it becomes aggressive. Aggression is number one clear sign. All right, it becomes aggressive over things that shouldn't be too, it shouldn't take too personal. It's almost like he wants to make a point. He wants to, he wants to have his way and all that. So that's one sign. I've seen this in my son. So I want what I want. I'm like, where is this boy getting it from? I have to look at myself. Maybe I was a bit stubborn when I was growing up. So yes, aggression is one sign. When they start, become, subtly rebellious as a parent, you tell him to do something, he hesitates before, or she hesitates before, or she questions, or she's slow to want to act up. It's a sign that you must begin to, observe carefully and begin to ask yourself question: why is this child acting this way? What is giving this child such confidence to openly or subtly, being rebellious to me? So these are two powerful signs, openly rebellion, whether subtle or aggression. Yeah. So those are two signs for parents to take,
So I wanted to ask you quickly, what are the signs of somebody that's being bullied?
Okay, the victim.
The victim.
All right. The victim becomes, a bit timid. Someone that would openly, expressive, enthusiastic, starts getting withdrawn.
They don't want to go to school anymore.
Exactly. They don't express themselves, their feelings anymore. So those are one powerful sign. They start becoming a bit timid. They become less, vocal in expressing their thoughts or what's going on. And you can tell that that they're sad, but they're not saying what's wrong with them.
But they don't talk.
Yes. So that's a clear sign that, there's something wrong with my son, my daughter. I need to be there. I need to be create that safe environment for her to be able to, or for him to be able to talk to me and as to internalize what's going on in his mind. So withdrawal, being timid, not that usual self.
So what can parents do once they begin to see these signs of their child withdrawing and changing slowly? What should they do?
Parents must be present and aware. You can't just be physically there. All right? You have to be aware what's going on. You have to be there with your children. In this time we're living, it's strange. Parents are busy, so much bills to pay, and totally understandable. I myself am in their shoes, and I'm constantly telling myself, I'm beginning to fall into the things I'm correcting. I'm beginning to see them in myself. So we must be present, we must be aware, we must be intentional. Otherwise, you won't pick the signs.
Yeah.
And you only have a window. You sometimes have a window. If you miss the window, a new identity is formed.
Wow.
It might take forever. You might never correct it. All right, so you might have to, start going for, therapy, deliverance, prayer to correct it.
When you could have done
yes.
that very
so there's always that window. You don't want to miss that window. You must be there. You must be constant. So parenting is not for boys or girls. It's for adults who are ready to take up that responsibility. Yes.
Mature people.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Just because you can does not mean you should.
Yes.
Right?
That's deep.
Just because you can does not mean you should. We only have about 2 minutes left.
Right.
What's the link between bullying, depression, and suicide amongst teens?
Bullying can make a child feel she's not worth it, or she's not worthy, or a boy, if a girl or a male child or a female child feel nobody wants me. I'm not good enough. I'm not bright. I'm not intelligent. And next thing you know, I don't deserve to be here. So inferiority complex sets in, and then they start thinking of ways to be antisocial. Nobody wants me. I'm not accepted. Next thing you know, if I go away, nobody will notice. Yes. If I don't even show up, I'm in class, nobody talks to me.
Oh, bless.
All right. So if I don't even show up, nobody will notice. So, and we're in a time where there's so many suggestions. They see these things online. Suicide happens, and because they are aware that this is the way some people dealt with it, coping mechanism, ungodly coping mechanism.
Yes.
So they resort to that.
Oh, my word.
If I go away, nobody will. My parents don't even notice my feelings. They don't know I'm around. They don't know I'm a being.
Oh my God.
All right, so that's the greatest, that's the biggest link.
Parents, we have a lot of work
Yes.
to do. We have a lot of work to do. It's not just enough to buy them gifts. It's not enough to take them to the best schools. You must also be present, not physically present,
Yes.
emotionally present,
Yeah.
mentally
Yeah.
present, and be there
Yeah.
for your kids.
Yeah.
Mr. Timiola Tuji.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
It's
so
a great
much.
pleasure.
God bless
It's
you.
a great
Thank
pleasure.
you for coming.
Yeah. And please, man, let me mention this quickly. For an African child, suicide might not be very common, but there's also something called mental suicide. When the child gives up, doesn't want to thrive, want to try, the child buries his potential. It happens a lot with African children.
Mental suicide.
Mentally, they just give up. They quit on life. They don't want to do anything. The grades drop.
Wow.
Academic excellence drops. Because they feel like they're not worth it. So that's an African child story.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
God bless
It's a
you.
pleasure.
Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure.
We're going to take a break and we'll come back. And when we come back, we'll go into the Ask segment. Back in a moment.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, audience. Welcome back to the Moment Show with Pastor FUNKE. And we are going into our Ask segment. And we have a few questions here today. Please go right ahead.
Okay, my name is Joseph Osoria. While the guest was here speaking, he made mention of he attempts classifying parents and children relationship. He said there are godly parents and ungodly children, and also ungodly children and godly parents. Now, my question now is, where is the place of culture and environment in nurturing the thoughts or the acts of bullying? Thank you.
All right. Okay, so just let me quickly say that what he was talking about scriptures. And he was saying that, look, in scriptures, you will find examples of parents that were godly, but their children were not godly. A case in point would be Eli. He was a godly man, he was a priest, but his children were bad. But specific now to your question, the place of culture and environment in raising. There are some cultures that their behaviors are, from the cultural norm is that they are aggressive people. And my mind comes to certain parts of our country where, they are just naturally aggressive people. And in that kind of culture, a child that comes out of it, in that culture, it may not be seen as a bully because it's the norm of the whole place. But when that child now grows and goes to another culture where maybe they are more mild-mannered, you can then begin to see, it then pops out as, no, this is not normal behavior. And then when they get to that, people then say, oh, they are bullies or they are overly aggressive, they are not well-mannered. So culture, traditions really affect the way people, behave. And it will affect bullying in particular if in that area they are normally over-aggressive. Okay. All right. We have another question from the studio audience. Please go straight ahead.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. My name is Ransom Franco. And my question is, I want to ask, how can we help a child that has been bullied? That is a victim of being bullied by the parent.
Okay. Well, let's say there's a very thin line between, I think, parenting and correcting children, and then sometimes it can get out of hand. In some cases, the normal cases, it's somewhere, in between there. There are very, extreme cases here and there where you would say, no, this is a real case of bullying. Most of the time, children obviously don't like to be corrected, especially when you apply what they call corporal punishment. And of course, the UN internationally, corporal punishment is not recognized. Okay, so what I would just say is that when you discipline your child, let your child first know what they've done. Number one. Number two, it's not every time every offense that should require you to smack, as they say, right? So you don't smack them for everything, right? You may say to them, look, if you do something like this, then mommy is going to smack you. And then when we smack, it should be reasonable. You should not inflict damage to children in the name of disciplining them. That's not proper. You should not hit a child to the point where there are marks on their bodies, you break something or you cut something. That's not smacking. That's wickedness. That's an act of wickedness. But I think that what parents should do, let's focus on what parents should do. Learn to talk to your children more. They will listen. When they go out of the boundaries you give them, you can gently, smack them in ways that don't hurt them. But there are other things you can do. You can take privileges away from them. Send them into the room. No TV, no phone, no this. Those are other ways that you can deal with, bullying in that kind of way. Discipline children generally. All right, we are totally out of time. And if you are just joining us, we've been talking about the psychological effects of bullying amongst our teens. And I'm really grateful to our guests, Mr. Timi Olatunji, who spoke so passionately about this problem. Thank you very much to everyone that has been watching us. You've been following us on our social media handles. Thank you so very much. We're about to close the show, and as always, God has blessed us with a vessel of that's going to lead us in worship, and I thank you. Please join us again next week for another exciting and scintillating episode of The Moment Show with Pastor FUNKE, where you always learn something new. And to lead us in worship this morning is my guest, Dele Ojebola, is going to be leading us. Thank you, everybody, and God bless you. See you next time. Thank you.
We are standing on holy ground, and I know that there are angels all around. Oh, let us praise King Jesus now. Are standing in His presence on holy ground. We are standing on holy ground. Yes, we are, and we know that there are angels all around. Let us praise Jesus now. We are standing in His presence